if you think Hamas are the good guys, there's nothing to talk about, which um, I couldn't agree more. So here we go. Sam Harris, last video of this stream.
I continue to be confused about your reluctance to engage more podcast guests who disagree with you about Gaza and why you think such conversations would be disasters. For instance, I consider Douglas Wilson a truly pernicious and intellectually dishonest figure, but you didn't treat a conversation with him as a non-starter or disaster. You seem to take a particularly hard conversational line on the war in Gaza. Is it your position that there is no person who opposes how Israel has conducted the war in Gaza that you deem intellectually honest enough to have a productive conversation with on the podcast?
Well, so it's not that I think Israel has conducted the war in Gaza perfectly, right? I mean, it's a war. It's awful. Many innocent people have been killed. The explanation for how awful it's been and the fact that it happened in the first place, I mean, the moral onus for that falls on Hamas, right? I mean, that's obvious. Anyone who's going to disagree with that, then there's going to be a lot we disagree about. So. If you don't think Hamas is the real cause of all the mayhem that happened after October 7th, well, then we're not really talking about how Israel has prosecuted the war. We're talking about many more things that are going to be very hard to debate. If it's just narrowly focused on whether Israel is guilty, whether the IDF is guilty of any war crimes, well, I'm happy to price all that in. Sure, they're going to be guilty of war crimes, and we'll find out more war crimes 6 months from now. And again, Israel.
Yeah, I think like that's good footing that Sam Harris is trying to create here. It's like if your initial argument is that Israel is the bad guys no matter what, and Hamas takes no responsibility, no blame for starting the war, for October 7th, for being a death cult, for being terrorists, and you think Hamas somehow are the good guys, well, then where's the conversation going to go? We have no footing. Now, if you want to talk differences in that regard, of course, maybe some of the conversations are worthy. But if your foundational layer is that Hamas essentially are the good guys and they can do no wrong and there's some sort of resistance fighters, then what the fuck is there to talk about? What common ground are we going to find there?
Israel is the type of society that can be counted upon, insofar as any society can be counted upon, to care about war crimes and prosecute war crimes and not revel in war crimes, right? And insofar as Israel fails to be that, well, then it becomes less of a project that is worth defending, right? I mean, it is the difference between Israel and its enemies that we should care about, right? So if this only becomes criticism of my position only becomes morally salient to me or intellectually interesting to me if what the crimes on the Israeli side need to be so egregious that suddenly there's no really important difference between Israel and her enemies, right? Then it's like, okay, yeah, you finally convinced me the IDF is as bad as Hamas and Hezbollah, right? Just as ideologically insane, just as capable of evil, just as irredeemable. So what would have to be true to make any of that even close to being the case? It's just there's no chance that's true, right? So the person who would debate me about the moral legitimacy of this war is someone who doesn't agree with what I just said and thinks that that these two sides are much closer, in fact, than they are, or worse. I mean, many people left of center think Israel is actually worse than Hamas and Hezbollah, right? And Hamas and Hezbollah only exist because Israel's just been so bad that they've driven totally psychologically and culturally normal Palestinians bonkers, so that they've behaved this awfully. And this is Paul Berman's brilliant point from his book Terror and Liberalism, a quarter century ago. People think that the extreme evil we see on display from jihadists, in the case of Israel, testifies to one thing: how badly Israel has treated the Palestinians. So Israel is culpable for the moral extremity of its enemies. Okay, that's just wrong. It's just factually untrue. So and so I'm not going to spend 2 hours trying to convince somebody who is unconvincible on that point. There's just nothing to talk about. It's like debating somebody who thinks the Nazis were the good guys in World War II. It's like this is not there's so little points of contact we can make here. Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people who think that every conversation is worthy, and Sam Harris has talked about this before, and I think he's right in this regard. Not every conversation is worth having. There's so many people online who are just debate me bros. Hey, debate me, debate me, debate me, debate me. Like, not everything has to be a fucking debate or a podcast. Like, especially if you have a large audience, I think the point Sam Harris makes here is good. It's like if you have a large audience or an audience just in general, like it doesn't matter if it's 10 people because 10 people can change the way they think in the world or whatever the case may be. It's much better to bring on an expert on the subject who's well versed in the history of the Middle East, the geopolitics, can actually give facts on the ground about what might be happening, and people can make their own decisions about that, what they see based on that expert opinion rather than bringing on someone who opposes your views and you kind of just go back and forth about meaninglessness because you don't agree on the foundation. One person believes Israel is the greatest evil to the world, and one person believes that jihadists are the one who are committing the most atrocities. And so it's probably better to bring on that expert, but then people will also claim that experts are invalid now because they've been wrong for so many times. Now we trust people like Dave Smith, who's a comedian, but now is an expert in geopolitics. We'll watch a video that I found on X here recently about him to end the stream in a second. But I think that's better. So if you do have an audience, every conversation is not worth having. It's not. But what is worth doing is bringing on someone who's an expert in the subject, Russia, Ukraine, tariffs, whatever the case may be, and having them sort of break down what's actually happening in kind of the most unbiased fashion and letting your audience digest that information and use it for however they want. So, anyways, that's what I think potentially.
to fact, once you've taken a position that's that extreme, um,
But with so many
that I
people in your
there's
audience that really just think that they would like to see this happen, is
give
there?
me a concrete claim. Anyone in the audience who feels that way, give me one thing that I should respond to, one concrete claim that matters in the context of what I just said.
Or maybe they think they can send somebody up who's more versed in this, who
But
would.
any claim, like you're going to say that Israel starved the Palestinians, there was a famine in Gaza. There was no famine in Gaza. Right? That's a lie. I mean, we've been the victims of a totally a comprehensive and amazingly successful psyop,
Mm-hmm.
How do you
right,
know
on
none of
social
that
media.
happened?
Well, we know, and so it's not that there was zero food insecurity, but in reality, the Israel, I mean, Israel, I think briefly suspended food shipments, which strategically was totally unwise, although it might have been defensible, at that level of the war. But um, the photos that documented the famine, so-called famine in Gaza, some of which won Pulitzer prizes, or at least one of which one of these photographers won a Pulitzer Prize for this fake photo. These photos were of kids with, I think, cystic fibrosis or cerebral palsy. I mean, various conditions that led them to be underweight, like visibly emaciated. These were cropped so as to exclude the presence of well-fed siblings of these. I mean, it was absolute fakery, right? This was not. This was a psyop. There was no one was starving in Gaza, right? And insofar as there was massive food insecurity, a lot of that was Hamas stealing food
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
hoarding it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was just, again, the pure evil of Hamas always goes ignored
Yep.
under these conditions, right?
So
Like
where are you getting your information?
The problem is that people have placed no responsibility on the terrorists and the death cult and the jihadists, but they claim all responsibility and a double standard, and they want to delegitimize and demonize everything that Israel does all the time, no matter what.
That none of this happened? Isn't it
Well,
possible they could have used a
it's
fake
been
photo and still something could have happened there?
well again. Where is it's just not. People have looked into this, and um, they've, I mean, again, the specific photographic evidence has been debunked. Um, I think the average, I mean, people have analyzed the average calorie count that got into Gaza throughout the whole war. I mean, it's something like, 3,000 calories per person a day. I mean, it's just like we're not talking about a condition under which people are going to be starving to death.
But some
Again,
may have been starving.
no, starvation is a specific thing. Like famine is a word that has a meaning, right? It doesn't mean that that some people are hungry.
Doesn't mean that people went hungry. Doesn't mean there was a food shortage. It's the same way when people use the word genocide to describe a war. It's the same way that people use deliberate starvation or famine to describe, like, some people were hungry and there might be a food shortages. Like, words matter, and they want to use the most extreme language to demonize Israel and the Jews the most they possibly can, like Sam is laying out here.
It means people are dying because they're malnourished, right? There's just so little food that you see children with bloated stomachs and people wasting away due to caloric insufficiency, right, and nutritional insufficiency. Okay, that didn't happen in Gaza, right? It's just, again, it's another blood libel like genocide. Genocide didn't happen in Gaza. Genocide, the word has a meaning, right? So we're surrounded by liars and hysterics and ideologues and people who are willingly bamboozled by genuinely sinister movements and organizations. I mean, the role that the IRGC and the Muslim Brotherhood and other orgs have played in amplifying misinformation and just the again this was a war that was largely fought on social media, and Israel lost it, absolutely lost it on social media. I mean, I'll just invite people to contemplate what actually happened on October 7th, right? Where Israel gave Gaza back to the Palestinians, right? Israel withdrew completely from Gaza. They effectively had I mean, it wasn't a proper state because it obviously couldn't be trusted to be a state. It couldn't have an army and et cetera. But Gaza was given back to the Palestinians, and they plowed billions of dollars, at least $1 billion of foreign aid into building the biggest bomb shelter our species has ever constructed. They didn't let any civilians into that bomb shelter because they were using their own civilians as human shields. They used, their own snipers to kill their civilians when they would try to get to safety after having been warned by the Israelis to leave certain neighborhoods before they were bombed. Millions of text messages were sent and cell phone calls were made. I mean, what genocide?
And on top of that, October 7th was way worse than most people even can conceptualize, because the atrocities, the vile, disgusting, atrocious behavior was way worse than people want to realize, especially those people claiming that Hamas are just resistance fighters. And so people don't want to wrap their brains around that because it would ruin their worldview.
Power would ever have done that. And Hamas came across, not only Hamas, but ordinary Palestinians came across the border on October 7th and raped and tortured and murdered and maimed, burned alive, patently innocent, non-combatant Israelis. Young people dancing at a music festival organized around peace, right, were raped, tortured, mutilated, murdered. Pretty girls were singled out for their beauty and shot in the face, or had their breasts cut off. I mean, this is nails driven into female genitalia. I mean, this is the Israelis do.
And people hearing this right now in real time from Sam will claim this is all made up. It's all bullshit. None of it's true, because they refuse to acknowledge that Hamas and Hezbollah and this Islamism and jihadists are the real horrors that this world faces.
Not do this, right? And then these people were celebrated by their whole society when they brought back hostages whose Achilles tendons had been severed, right? So they couldn't run away. I mean, this is there is no comparison between the two sides in this conflict, morally or ethically or spiritually or I mean, in any other way that matters. And we have to understand that this is actually the ground truth for this movement globally, right? This is not just the Palestinians. This has nothing to do with the Palestinians in the end, right? This is
Right.
jihadism
Okay.
and
All right.
cultures organized around jihadism.
Yep. Thanks, Sam.